I was realizing as I was trying to make predictions, I'm like, anything that is not in my very small universe of
You have
media,
no idea.
I can't look at myself seriously making these predictions. So high conviction is generally the stuff like that I spend time in. The first one,
By the way, that's one of my signs of like a mature, self-aware entrepreneur is when like a person says to me like, I know this really well, so I'm gonna, but these things like I have no clue. And when someone like has the same level of knowledge on everything, I immediately don't believe anything that they say.
What's up, everyone? I'm Alex Lieberman.
And I'm Sophia Amoruso.
Yo, this is Jesse Pujji.
And this is The Crazy Ones. What's up, Misfits? Welcome back to The Crazy Ones, the best startup show on planet Earth. I am so excited for an amazing 2023, so let's do this damn thing. Few housekeeping items before we get into the episode. Number one, this year is going to be the year of experimentation. You're going to see us trying a lot of stuff as it relates to the type of content we're talking about, the format of content. So you may see the regular 45-minute roundtable style episode we do, but you also may see old school Founders Journal-esque episodes where we do diary entries of lessons we're learning. We may also incorporate interviews with some of the best entrepreneurs in the world. So stay tuned for some of these things. And as always, we want to hear your feedback. So shoot an email to thecrazyones@morningbrew.com and let us know what you think. Second, I want to share that our co-host, Sophia Amoruso, is not going to be a regular host on the pod moving forward. Sophia has an amazing amount of really exciting things going on this year for her as it relates to her investing career, her entrepreneurial career, and it simply is just taking up too much time. And we're super excited for her. She's a friend of the pod. She's for sure going to be on this show in the future as she sees really cool things happening with her investing, with her businesses like Business Class. But moving forward, it's going to be Jesse and I co-piloting the show, and we're going to miss Sophia, but we're excited for all that is ahead for her.
Miss you, Sophia.
We are definitely going to miss you. And by the way, I already thanked her in private, but I need to thank Sophia for the really thoughtful gifts she sent me. She got me a jacket, like a collegiate style jacket, which I've never heard because I wasn't on a football team, so I didn't have one of those cool patch jackets. She sent me one of those and it says Misfits on it. So shout out Sophia for getting the awesome jacket. Once I figure out my light situation, gonna have that shining in the background. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about today's episode. First, Jesse and I are going to be talking about the big things that are on our minds as we head into 2023, from the latest developments in AI to business stories that have captured our attention, and also what specific predictions we have for the year ahead. I'm typically not a prediction person, but my view is these start a conversation. It pushes us to form points of view, and that's the goal for that section. The second is a complete 180. I've been working on a side business in the background. It's called the Plunge. It involves throwing plungers at a dartboard. It's a backyard game. I'm going to take you all through the story and the genesis of this game, and then Jesse is going to do a good old business CrossFit, asking questions, poking holes in the business. And finally, we're going to wrap up with Startup AMA, where we're going to be answering a question about recurring meetings and Shopify's, I would say, very contrarian change that they made as it relates to their recurring meetings. So let's hop into this thing.
Here we go.
Let's do it. 2023. Where do you want to start? Do you want to talk about the things that you're most excited about or thinking about? Do you want to talk about predictions? What's
I think maybe one place to start for me is predictions. I think they're polarizing.
Yeah. For sure.
And my favorite quote around planning for your business or predictions is like, plans are useless, but planning is invaluable. And so I always relate to these things as, the predictions are going to be wrong for sure. We're going to get them wrong. But the thought process and the cycling around in your brain and talking through with your teams, that's where the value comes in. Because then when you do spot something or something does come up, you're ready to take advantage of it. So that's just a little bit of my take versus obviously it's a fun parlor game to predict stuff, but ultimately the value is in thinking through and like if for example AI becomes critical, what's going to happen to your business so you can be ready for like that's the interesting part of the conversation, because even if you bat 20%, 200 on predictions, you're gonna be wrong a lot. But it's invaluable.
Are you planning for under the assumption that AI is bigger this year, like within your businesses?
100%.
What does that look like?
Yeah, it's showing up everywhere for us. I think I had a conversation with Adrian as we were thinking about, value add initiatives for customers and and the offshore talent. And I said, what if we trained everyone on the top 3 to 5, all the Philippines talent on the top 3 to 5 AI tools, and then we sold that into the market? It's not that big of a lift for us to do, but imagine someone shows up and they go, oh yeah, I know how to use Jasper, I know how to use ChatGPT-3, just tell me what you need. And
Totally.
they say, oh, go write me emails. And now all of a sudden they can throw it in ChatGPT-3. Their English doesn't even have to be that great. And so boom, that's a entire value prop. We did it on the show with Unbloat and started using it, and now it's used constantly. You literally prototyped a capability that the company now uses. And to me, if we launch more brands, we're absolutely going to be leveraging parts of this. And then literally something announced today. It's a genius idea. I just messaged the founder. I don't remember the name of it, but it's generative AI around product pictures. And so, a lot of brands, I know this from Unbloat, you always want new product pictures, but it's, you got to go pay someone to go take all these pictures. Well, what if generative AI could take your product and put it in a pretty girl's hand or an old woman's hand or whatever, right? Like, so now there's some guy launched it today on Twitter. And from Kahani perspective, we reached out because it's a huge issue for us of making sure the brands have content. Well, what if they don't have to do anything? What if generative AI just solves that problem for Kahani? And all of a sudden, everyone can have these very rich interfaces. So those are just tiny examples across each business. And look, I don't know. In a year, we'll do the check-in. And we'll say, it turns out nobody wants offshore AI capability. Or as we did it, it wasn't as interesting as we thought. But the point, again, is planning is really valuable. Thinking about this and how it may impact the business and inserting it is a big piece of it. But yeah, I think it's a game-changing technology.
It's funny that you mentioned that second product. We're gonna have to find out what the name is of it, because we'll talk about it in a few minutes. But the Plunge, which is my backyard game, I'm in the thick of building a Shopify website for the first time. And obviously one of the things as I'm building my Shopify website is I'm getting product pictures. And it's you literally see me out here on a Saturday in Hoboken with my DSLR camera that I got as a graduation gift in high school, trying to take amazing pictures that have the right amount of light. But then also, if I don't want that background, I need to find a tool that takes out the background so I can put it on other things. So to have a product that literally just takes the perfect kind of cutout of my product and puts it in any person's hands, in front of them, on any background, would have probably saved me 4 hours this past weekend.
Well, and dude, you haven't run it yet. I've been running a brand for a year or two. You need more pictures. It's not like you just need them once.
Totally.
New things come up. And all right, so it's called Hello Pebbly. Pebbly? Alfred Lua is the founder.
Pebbly.
Pebbly.
Okay.
Upload a picture, upload a product image, pick a theme, voila.
That's awesome. This also begs the question, by the way, and we can talk about this in a minute, of which companies are actually going to accrue value in AI? What is commoditized versus what is actually differentiated? And I was trying to make a prediction on this, and then I kept trying to, and then I was do I know nearly enough about AI to make a call on this? But we'll talk about it in a minute. I want to start by sharing kind of my view of what's going to happen in the world in 2023. And I want to see if it lines up with you. And if it does line up with you, how you plan your business in accordance with or kind of differently than this. So my view is I always try to look at things as where are we right now? And if where we are right now kind of stays relatively similar, what are the downstream effects that it has? So my view is where we are right now is markets are down somewhere between 20 and 30% in the US. Interest rates are rising as the Federal Reserve tries to bring down inflation, which hit a decade high or multi-decade high at 9.1%. It's gotten down to 7.1%. I believe consumers are going to be tighter with their spending as there's less money in the economy from government stimulus during COVID. Inflation is higher, so borrowing is more expensive. I think the value of people's assets will go down, whether it's real estate, whether it's the value of companies. So I just think overall, businesses are not going to perform as well in 2023. Consumers are going to be buying less stuff. Valuations are going to be repriced for higher interest rates. More layoffs are going to continue, I think, across the board. I think especially with venture-backed businesses that are getting pressure from their investors, or they don't
Well,
want
they
to
all
raise down
overbuilt.
rounds.
They all
Yeah.
overbuilt. That's a big part of why they're going to keep doing layoffs, I think.
Totally. But I also think it's going to hit like big tech companies who have seen what Elon has done with Twitter and are
Yeah.
going to get pressure from activist investors saying, guys, like
Well, there was the Amazon news that they're going to do 18,000 instead of 11,000 or something that leaked.
I saw a crazy stat by Scott Galloway. He said, he was like, if you want to increase, what did he say? Wait, I have to find this line. He basically was like, if you want to increase the value of Amazon, Apple, or Google by some percent, you can either fire 25,000 people from your company, or you have to increase top line by $12 billion. And he's like, when you look at that math, these companies are going to make a very easy decision. So I think that's part of it. I think just focus for companies is going to go from revenue growth to cost control. I think you're going to see consolidations, companies trying to sell because either they see a storm ahead and they want to take chips off the table, or acquirers are going to be looking for good deals. So that is kind of like the picture that's in my head that informs how do we think about the plan for the business moving forward. Does that line up with you?
Yeah, broadly, I'd say like it's going to get worse before it gets better is what I kind of at a high level version of what you just said. And in part, look, I think the other thing to remember that you didn't say related to that is a lot of this is just psychology. It's just fear versus greed. And there was a huge period of greed. And it's not like the challenge with psychology is it doesn't flip overnight in either direction. And so even if things are fine in a year, if people don't feel like they're fine, and I think that's going to be a bigger challenge, and there's ripples that take place. So I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And then the other thing I was saying earlier is dude, it's overbuilt. Everything, and I think that's really an important point for an entrepreneur is if you don't, none of my companies have done layoffs yet. And, when Ampush had, I think, one of its best years ever during the year of COVID. And of course, there was a discussion of, oh my God, it's a new normal. Let's build. Yep. And me and Nick were like, hell no, we got lucky this year. We're going to stay conservative. Let's plan to this run rate. And we haven't laid anyone off because of it. Yeah, maybe we didn't take as much as we could have on the upside. I don't know. But like, I just don't want people to lose sight of the fact that layoffs are a function of greed. And there was a moment where people were just overbuilding a lot. And that's what leads to layoffs. And that's what leads to a lot of this stuff. So yeah, but I'm broadly aligned. Let's keep, what else?
Okay. So that's overall prediction of the economy. Now I'm going to share a few I've broken my predictions to high conviction and middle conviction because I was realizing as I was trying to make predictions, I'm like, anything that is not in my very small universe of
you have
media,
no idea.
I'm like, I can't look at myself seriously making these predictions. So high conviction is generally the stuff like that I spend time in. The first one,
by the way, that's one of my signs of like a mature, self-aware entrepreneur is when like a person says to me like, I know this really well, so I'm going to, but these things, like I have no clue. And when someone like has the same level of knowledge on everything, I immediately don't believe anything that they say.
Well, I'll share it in a second, but one of the predictions I wanted to make was around pickleball and what's going to happen to the game of pickleball in 2023. And I was laughing at myself as I was trying to put it in the high conviction zone of me having conviction of is pickleball going to slow as a sport. So I will share that prediction, but I provide the caveat that I'm not the expert. First high conviction prediction is that short form video is going to continue to grow at a record pace. And the belief in that is attention shorter than ever before. With tools like AI, creating short form video becomes easier and easier. I think YouTube continues to invest heavily in it, especially as there are security concerns around TikTok and people are going to need to diversify their audience. And YouTube, I think, has put the pressure on platforms to come up with solutions for monetizing short form video. So I think it's going to be huge.
Yeah. I mean, I'd zoom it out a tick and Kahani, the entire bet is vertical media is going to take over commerce.
Yep.
And so we actually call it vertical media broadly because if there's pictures, there's going to be gist, but the idea, as long as this thing looks like this, right? The phone looks like a vertical media landscape. That type of format's going to be super important. And I think it's not only going to become important in the platforms, which I think you were talking about, but I think websites are going to have to start leveraging it. I predict, if we're right about Kahani, that sometime this year it's going to become a must-have thing that your e-com site has tons of vertical media integrated into it to have the right rich experience that a user demands. But I think it's going to happen everywhere. I think B2B is going to have it. I think that format is going to become the dominant internet format the way that like feeds were the dominant format maybe
Yeah.
5 years ago.
I also think it's interesting to think about if that prediction is right, what's the downstream effect on other business opportunities. So I think about like, there are a few agencies like I know well related to creating short form video. So there's like Our Future, there's Clipped. I think, and it's effectively what Growth Assistant does, right? It's I would refer to it as geographic arbitrage for a specific need or skill.
Yeah.
So a lot of these editors are in the Philippines, the Sri Lanka, or in India, and they're just high skilled editors where the cost of labor is lower. I think the opportunity for service-based video editing businesses, or just let's expand it, like you said, vertical businesses, even like vertical websites, etc. I think the demand for that is going to be significantly higher because I just think there's so few agencies relative to the number of people who are trying to create within this form factor.
Yeah, one of the cool things about being a little older and having experience is like I get really excited. I've lived through the shift from desktop to mobile, and I lived through the shift to feed. And dude, you think about like Sprout Social and Buddy Media and all these companies that came up around social and then mobile. How many software, how many services opportunities? And I think the same thing is going to happen with vertical media and short form video broadly. There's going to be software solutions. You know, we've talked about it for Kahani. Is like maybe we should actually be a media management solution because you're going to have to take vertical media and manage it across all of these platforms,
Yep.
including your website powered by us. Like, so there's so many different versions of this that I think become really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also interesting to think about. We still haven't arrived at long form vertical media in any way. Like if you want to watch YouTube video, you turn your video sideways and it's horizontal. Like Quibi was starting to try to do this and they didn't figure it out. I'm interested to see like how do the boundaries get pushed of intermediate or longer form content that is solely consumed in a vertical format, because it hasn't happened yet. Okay, a few more high conviction predictions and then I want to hear yours. Decline in cohort-based courses. So I just think, you know, there was this massive boom during the pandemic in cohort-based courses. The idea that you can create digital courses, they have a beginning, they have an end. There's a few like live sessions that some teacher does. You saw, you know, the advent of Section 4, which is Scott Galloway's company, Maven, which is Goggin and Wes Cow's company. And I just think, not that there's not appetite for cohort-based courses, I just think there's oversupply right now. And when you actually think about it, I think cohort-based is not flexible enough in nature for what consumers want. It is still, it forces you in a given week or a given set of weeks to follow a certain schedule for a course. And I think this was a reaction to the stat that everyone used in their pitch decks, that only 4% of people finish their courses on Udemy.
Right.
I almost think that in some ways that part of it's like a feature, not a bug, where it's like people who actually want education are going to focus their time on doing it. There's always going to be a cohort within the world that just isn't motivated enough to get things done. And so I just think cohort-based courses, we're going to hear a lot less talk about them in 2023.
Yeah. I don't, that falls into my, I don't know enough to, you know, the only way I think about those things is I try to pull things forward 10 years, then back into this year from that. So in 10 years, I think universities and the entire EDU system, other than maybe the top 100 universities, is going to be pretty reimagined. And so given that, I think we're probably going through the sort of like volatile, oh, is Udemy the right solution? No, is Maven the right, you know, like,
it's the figuring it out phase where there's like the pendulum swing and the pendulum keeps just swinging back and forth until it finds the middle.
Like, all of a sudden everyone's going to realize credentialing is super important.
Yeah.
Then like, I don't think universities are going to die. Like, you know, some middle of the road school is going to become a brand that in its region still carries value, that someone's going to turn in. Already there's these, I forgot what they're called, but there's these businesses that take universities' IP and turn them into online courses.
Yeah, like 2U.
Like 2U, and there's a bunch of them. It's a big industry, but I think there's going to even be more nimble versions of that and credentialing. I don't know what's going to happen this year, though.
Okay, let's hear one from you. Do you have any predictions for the year?
Yeah, you know, one of the themes I have, I do a lot of bottom up stuff at Gateway X, but then we quickly see top down. You know, I think one of the big things is I'd say in the short term there will be a shakeout in the creator economy. But again, in the long term, I think that category of people and workers is going to continue to kind of grow and explode. I think similar to all the rest of the economy, it's been overbuilt for what the demand is going to be now. It's going to pull back. There's going to be a flight to quality. But in the medium run, let's say 2 to 3 years, it's going to keep being a critical workforce. And I think there's a huge opportunity. One of our lists of ideas and items is creating services for that category, because they fall into this neither here nor there. I have a really good idea that I won't share, but like, just imagine that these aren't fully employees. They're not fully contract employees. They're not fully businesses. So they don't check any of the current boxes for all the various products, payroll runs. One of the juiciest private equity businesses out there, I don't know if I've told you about this, maybe offline I've told you, is like rights management for Hollywood people.
I think you've like vaguely mentioned it, but walk me through it.
So, in a movie, 200 people run on the credits, and each of them has a different deal with the studio to get paid. And every time that movie shows up on TBS or someone quotes it, like there's some mathematical compensation that needs to be calculated and paid to that person. Like, it's a crazy complex. So guess what? There's a bunch of private equity owned now, because they're such great businesses, payroll companies that run the gamut on that and make, I think, 45% EBITDA margins. They're software companies with payroll components. I think something like that. That's actually a very good idea too for the creator economy. But there's just all these things that I think you can build around that economy over time.
Yeah,
But in the meantime, I think it's going to have a pullback. Like, I think you're going to see a lot of people getting out of it.
Yeah,
this year.
I agree with the analogy. Now I remember the kind of like the payroll companies you mentioned that basically true up the payment of everyone who gets pieces of movies. I guess one question I'd have there is like, creator economy still feels like a fraction of the movie industry, and so the question is how big can it get? And I don't know. I go back and forth on how big I can get, and I'm saying this as someone who is like the biggest proponent of the creator economy, but I've just watched in the last year, like you said, there's just like this overfunding of creator businesses, because the more time that I've spent just in the startup space, the more that I've learned that venture investors are far less independent thinkers than I thought they were. Like, I always assumed it was like the smartest people with the most contrarian views who didn't give a shit what other people were doing. And it's like the exact opposite. My thought on the creator economy
Everyone's
is
human.
Creator economy funding is going to dry up this year.
Yeah.
And my view is like there are lots of businesses to build in the creator economy still. There are not a lot of businesses that are what I would call venture scale creator economy businesses right now. I think the only venture scale creator economy businesses that I can think of at the moment are what I would call electricity businesses or utility businesses that get a piece of every transaction of creators. The funny thing about this, and we don't refer to them as creator businesses, is like those businesses are Facebook, they are Instagram, they're TikTok, they're OnlyFans. They're getting a piece of every creator. And I haven't seen a business yet, other than maybe like Cameo, which has an X factor like talent that people already have affinity for, that I think has venture like upside. The only other business or type of creator business I can think of are creator founded businesses that are built with top 0.1% creators. So businesses that are built with the Mr. Beast of the world, where Feastables is doing, $1 million a month in just Walmart, businesses like that. So I haven't found.
I think in the short term, we tend to underestimate the scale of things. Like, it's crazy, dude. When we started running Ampush, Facebook was doing less than $1 billion in revenue. In 2015, I was like, oh, I don't know, should we sell this thing? $24 billion in revenue. Today, it's doing $110 billion in revenue. And like, I totally missed it. I was like, oh, Facebook's like petering out in 2015.
It's wild.
And in many ways, most of the value creation. So, I think the creator economy ultimately is going to be much more verticalized. It's going to be, the creators are going to get bigger. The verticals are going to get more pronounced. Like, right now, it's a free for all. It's like, you endorse my supplement, you also endorse my blender, and that's not the future of that, And it doesn't take much when you think about the value of an endorsement. Like Michael Jordan, what percentage did he get of Nike? He's the first influencer, really. Yeah. And what if that happens broadly across the entire economy still?
I totally agree with that. I guess the one nuance there, though, is you're talking about Michael Jordan, who is the greatest athlete of all time. How many?
But just take a percentage of what he got over the revenue he generated and apply that to a $20 trillion GDP economy, right? And now you have, I don't know, say 5-10%. Like, it's a huge economy that then, by the way, has to get organized, has to get verticalized. They're going to be top percent. There's going to be all kinds of a system built around that, in my opinion.
Well, we'll get to it in a few minutes because I'm thinking a lot about how, if at all, do I incorporate creators into this backyard business I'm building. So I'm going to be interested to get your thoughts on it. I want to just throw out a few of these middle conviction predictions just for shits and giggles, and then we'll talk about the plunger business. So the first prediction is that Elon will no longer be the CEO of Twitter by the end of 2023, but Twitter as a platform will be thriving. What does thriving mean? I don't know the answer exactly, other than that, like, revenue is trending up, cost base is still low, and it feels like they are innovating on the platform a lot. Do you agree?
Yeah, 9 out of 10. I mean, I agree.
Okay. Pickleball growth slows. So do
you play pickleball?
Yeah, I mean, I've played. I don't play it like regularly. I think it's a very fun game, but it just feels like one of those things where the hype to reality ratio feels like it's off. Like, I would say in AI, there's a lot of hype right now, but like reality also feels very high. Pickleball is a professional sport right now. I just don't view it as a high skill enough sport to ever be like a big sport like the major four sports.
Yeah,
I can tell you're someone who really likes pickleball, and you're taking.
No, dude, I've never played pickleball until the holiday season.
Oh, really?
But I'm a super competitive tennis player, and so I was immediately very good. Like I not surprisingly, right? Like I know how to move the racket, and what I was actually just thinking about is the big four. Like, is pickleball entertaining to watch? Because it's clearly very entertaining to play and easy, and it has this huge just top of funnel. Because, I was playing with my 70-plus-year-old father-in-law. Yeah. And then my brother-in-law's
the top of funnel is everyone. Everyone who's interested in a workout or a sport.
And me and my brother-in-law were playing, and we're both competitive tennis players. We're good. Like, I would beat 95% of people on the tennis court, random people, right? But we were playing a pretty competitive game with the four of us, and so that was interesting. It was just like, it just has a very wide funnel. Yeah, I think that's premature. Maybe 5 years. You're right. I think it'll keep growing.
Okay. We'll check January 6th of 24, but my guess is the growth rate is lower than 2022. Let's do two more. TikTok is sold to a U.S. company.
I agree.
Okay. The only caveat in this is
Microsoft.
Honestly, you think Microsoft? I don't know enough about U.S. politics, honestly, to know how deals like this are timed based on different political agendas and what the election cycle is. So, like, I know there's a 2024 election cycle. I don't know how that impacts whether this ends up getting pushed out to 2024 right before the election.
Yeah, here's my cockamamie theory. There's some real stuff that the CIA and whoever else is thinking about. Like, they're really doing a true countrywide risk assessment. Now, there's one version of it where they're like, it's not really a risk. This is all overblown. And I don't know if that's, Then there's another one where it's like, no, holy crap. This is a huge problem. This can't exist. It's a national security threat. Then in that scenario, the Biden administration goes, is it good for us to push this? Like, is it a great thing to get reelected on, to your point? If so, he's going to go super public with it the way Trump did. Yep. If not, he's going to still make it happen, but they're going to kind of like back to, look, guys, I'm sorry. We're going to block you in the country, but it's not going to be very headline-y type news, but a deal is going to happen. The government's literally going to broker a deal, and Microsoft is the right buyer for so many different reasons. And then if it's not actually deemed a threat, then I think it's a little bit more a typical strategic process. Like, I don't think the government necessarily, unless again politically they go, I don't care that it's not actually a threat. It's a great thing to get reelected on.
I saw a prediction by Adam Ryan that he thinks Disney is going to acquire TikTok. He thinks
no chance.
Disney will acquire TikTok and they'll sell off ESPN to be able to fund it. You don't think there's any chance?
No
Why?
chance. Dude? Well, because we read what's his name's book, the Ride of a
Bob
Lifetime.
Iger's. Yeah,
And he
Ride
talked
of a
about
Lifetime.
why they didn't buy Twitter ultimately. TikTok is a way worse version of Twitter, man. Disney is
Totally.
Disney. They don't want UGC, man. They have the real assets. Why on earth would they want that? Microsoft, on the other hand, this is the asset they've been waiting for like 2 decades.
Yeah, they're drooling over it. It's interesting. We'll see. Okay, before we hop into the plunge, I just wanted to share. There was this Twitter thread that we'll put in the show notes that I thought was freaking hilarious. It was this guy Paul. He did a tweet thread of predictions made in 1923 about 2023. Did you see this thread?
No.
Okay, so these are. I'll just read some of the predictions that were made. What I learned from this is like some things were scary right, other things were scary wrong, but the things that are wrong, when you extend the time, it's like the magnification of being wrong gets blown out, right? It's almost like how the value of companies that cash flows are like 30 years in the future gets really impacted. Same things. Yeah. Okay, so the workday will be 4 hours long. All people will be beautiful. Life expectancy will be 300 years. Men will curl their hair. The U.S. will have a population of 300 million.
Whoa.
Utensils will be made of pulp. Flights from Chicago to Hamburg will only take 18 hours. I looked it up before. Direct is like 10 hours. Newspapers will have been out of business for 50 years. Cancer will be eradicated. People will communicate using watch-size radio telephones.
Wow.
There's some like really freaking right things.
That was said 100 years ago?
Yeah, I'll send you the thread after. It's like
That's
literally
so
like pictures of old school clippings.
That is amazing. No, I think that, it makes sense that they extrapolated. The life expectancy was probably changing at such a high rate at that time, right?
Totally.
So he just extrapolated that.
Yeah,
what hasn't changed? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, that's true. Human greed, human.
Yeah, people were still playing the stock market.
Yeah,
leading
people
up to the.
Yeah, people. I don't know. It wasn't the creator economy or Web3. People were over investing in tulip bulbs or.
The stock market got run up during the Roaring '20s. It was literally the last 10 years. Great Gatsby. The people were ambitious and wanted to build things. Crazy ambition was there still.
It's pretty wild. Yeah, it would be fun to like go back and just read. I haven't read enough like nonfiction history, just like to see. It's probably really striking how little has actually changed in just how people interact and think and behave. Okay, let's hop into the plunge. I've given you some background on what I'm building, but you don't have the full picture. So interrupt me whenever, but I'm going to explain to you and to the misfits out there what I've been working on. So just to
let's pretend you're an entrepreneur coming to me for advice, because that's a conversation that happens a lot.
Well, I am. Yeah, I am coming to you for advice. So the context here, by the way, is like I've shared this on the show in the past, but we sold a big chunk of Morning Brew in October of 2020. I stepped out of the CEO role in April of 2021. I spent probably 4 or 5 months trying to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. I would suggest to anyone who asks that question to make the question a little bit more approachable and not say what you want to do for the rest of your life. Ask maybe like for the next 6 months. And at some point, I just started like feeling the creative juices flowing again. And so I just wanted to start building something. And I very intentionally was like, I want to just build something that I really enjoy building. And I don't want to think at all like, is this going to be bigger than Morning Brew, smaller? It doesn't matter. So one thesis that I've had for a long time, going back to our creator conversation, is that I believe that there's going to be like a Berkshire Hathaway for creator businesses. And what I mean by that is I think that there's going to be someone who sits at the center of launching many businesses with creators. And when I talk about creators, I really mean like internet creators, YouTubers, TikTokers, etc., right. Twitter personalities. There's going to be someone who helps them launch businesses, takes them to product market fit, finds operators, and then kind of is the chairman of many businesses. Likely will start in a single vertical and then move horizontally as they get proficiency in that vertical.
Right.
And I think I think I've talked about in the past, the reason it'll be done is marketing costs are going up. People follow people. Creators are like athletes, and they don't want to just trade their time for money. They want to actually build equity in something. So those are the reasons. So all this to say, I started thinking, what's a creator business I could build? And I started looking at creators that I thought would be good to partner with. One of the first creators I looked at was Dude Perfect. Do you know Dude Perfect?
Mm-mm.
Okay, Dude Perfect, your kids would love Dude Perfect. So Dude Perfect is a sports YouTube account that's been around for probably 15 years now. It's a group of friends that do like basketball trick shots.
Cool.
They just do a bunch of different sports trick shots. Their third most viewed video ever I saw on YouTube was them throwing plungers. It was a plunger trick shot video where they were throwing plungers at plexiglass, at boards they had made on their campus, and had 50 million views. And so I watched this and I was like, one, this video crushed it. So clearly there's some interest in what they're doing. Two, Dude Perfect doesn't have a product or a business that they've launched yet. So maybe they'd be interested in partnering with me on something. And three, throwing a plunger looks a lot like throwing an axe, and axe throwing is going through a very real moment right now. And so the first thing I did is I went to Home Depot just to see how the plungers they were throwing would actually stick. I have a video I'll send to you after of like a drain and sink plunger, throwing it in a Home Depot and getting it to stick. I got connected to a guy who has relationships in China.
I feel like I need to make you do 60-second startup here so that we can get the whole idea out.
Okay, fine.
And then
okay,
we'll operate
fine.
it. Okay, 60-second startup. I don't know all the questions. Okay, what is the name of your startup?
The Plunge.
Okay, what problem does your startup solve?
Boredom at home.
I don't know the questions. What?
Okay, I'll just finish it in 60. So the goal is, it is the next big game in backyard sports. The Plunge allows people to get the satisfaction and enjoyment of axe throwing without a trip to the hospital. The game involves throwing four plungers at a board. You go head to head against one person up to 8 people. It can be played in your backyard, or it can be played at a sports tailgate, or it can be played on the beach. And my goal is to launch this business for pre-orders in the next few weeks, and use short form social content of people playing the game, put it on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and any other short form platform to drive demand for the product. If I hit enough pre-orders, I will end up pushing forward with the business. If I don't hit enough pre-orders, then I will have to change strategy. And that is the game.
And how much does the game cost?
So the game costs...
Like, what does it charge? What do you charge? What's your price?
Yeah, so I'm going to charge $149.99.
Okay, and what does it cost you landed?
As of right now, cost, if I wanted to get it to Jesse Pujji's house from China, so the whole process to get it to you, is $68.
Okay, so what is that? You make $90?
I make whatever one... This is really embarrassing how good we are at math.
150, 60, 90.
81 over... Yeah. Yeah, so $81.
Okay. So what's the market size, or how do you think about market size?
So I would say it's so funny because I've never actually thought about market size ever in building businesses. But if I had to think about this out loud, I would say my immediate target market is 18 to 35-year-old men who want to play this game with friends.
One of my favorite hacks for market size, by the way?
What is it?
It's just to find a comp business that like is close enough and see if it's really big.
Yeah.
So I actually know the founder of Spikeball. This reminds me a lot of Spikeball.
Chris. So I'm talking. So in doing kind of this game, I've talked to Chris from CrossNet, and I'm talking to Chris from Spikeball. I know that he has sold Spikeball. Wait 1 second. I was on their site. I think they've sold 2 million sets. Let's see.
Okay.
About us.
So 150.
Oh, sorry. 4 million players, but that's not necessarily the amount of sets. So let's just say that they've sold 2 million sets.
Right. So what do you think is a reasonable goal for you for this year? Just for fun.
Yeah, my goal, it would be a success this year if I can do $500K in revenue.
So what is that, selling?
Yeah, so So how many sets you're saying?
4,000 of these, 3,000 of these.
It's it's 3,000 of these sets.
And production, you feel comfortable you can scale to that. That's not an issue.
Correct. If anything,
Okay.
honestly, the big thing that I've had to realize is warehouses only want to do big scale. So I've had to deal with the issue of like, I don't want to manufacture $250,000 worth of product until I know there's demand. But
Right.
yes,
Have you found someone who will do? But I think it's a real issue. MOQ, right? That's the lingo. Minimum order
exactly.
quantity. You found someone who will only make a couple thousand for you.
Yes, I have.
Okay. And do you have a 3PL?
Don't have a 3PL yet.
Okay, I can refer you to the one that we use for Unbloat.
Okay.
They're in Michigan. They're very centralized. They're a little old school, but that's an important part of this is like a good one that you can trust.
Yeah. So I need a 3PL. And
What about packaging?
haven't done that yet. Just been literally focused on getting the game.
I would
in
not.
perfect
By the way,
shape.
I didn't do any packaging or shipping. I sent my stuff in an ugly box. Still do until
Did
it
you?
gets to a certain scale. Yeah, I mean, it's an example of validation. Like to me, you validate it. Depends a little bit on your taste, of course, but maybe you get.
By the way, my whole ethos here, and I don't know if you approach things in the same way. It's like my whole ethos is, how can I spend as little as humanly possible on this until I know that there's demand and that there's money coming the door. So on this whole thing,
So how will you know
far,
that?
It's a great question. It's actually it's one of my biggest questions right now, which is what's enough pre-orders to justify moving forward with production. I think if I can in the first few months get 500 orders, that feels pretty good. But I've only
By the way, why are you doing it this way though? If you don't care about the size, why? There's some demand. I mean, dude, there's 330 million people in the U.S.
Yep.
Why do you care? Why, like, if you don't mind if this is a 2,000 unit a year business forever, why do you care? Why are you even creating that thing for yourself? Go figure it out. Go figure out how to find those 2,000 purchasers per year. Like you know what I mean?
Yes, I agree with that. But so wait, when you say what, just go figure it out versus doing what?
Well, you're creating some and it's normal for entrepreneurs to create a stage gate, let's call it, right? Before they double down. But that's typically normal of a business where you're like, should I invest my time into this?
Yep.
Because my time is worth a lot and I care a lot about the scale that this will become. In your case, you said you don't care. So there's some number of people who will buy this.
The big reason, I guess, the big thing that I'm doing to StageGate is I'm doing pre-orders. So you pre-order the product on the website versus buy it. And the reason is that I want to get to a batch size that I can order from the manufacturer, because I think like that what the manufacturer won't do is like I get an order on Friday and then I get an order next Wednesday.
Of course.
They're not just going to
You have to order a few thousand in the beginning.
Exactly. So I don't know if I'm going to get to a few thousand.
$68 or say 50 because you said to get it to me, they're shipping. So you don't want to spend $100,000 until you think there's some demand.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I don't know if you don't care about the size. There's a big enough business here. You could go sell it to like schools or something if you really. I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah. No. No. But what I'm saying is, I don't want to unless. So your view is like you think there's enough demand where you would just eat the $100,000 cost and have a few thousand games sitting in a storage unit.
If I don't care about making, like, if I don't care the size of the business.
Yeah, but do you care about losing $100,000?
Yeah, I do, but I don't. I 330 million people in the U.S., 100 million households. Like, I firmly believe
math makes it sound easy.
Okay, let's talk about what are your top marketing initiatives? Like, how are you going to go out and market this thing?
Yeah, so there's a few things I'm doing. One is I'm planning on creating basically daily TikTok or vertical video content that's going to drop. It's going to be people playing the game. It's also going to be a lot of competition type content where I sit outside in Hoboken with a board and it says hit a bullseye, win $100 or $1,000. I'm going to do like head-to-head videos where I'll get two friends. They'll bet each other either money or like an act. And the winner gets to do something to the loser. So that's like the organic content I'm creating. Now, bringing in the creator piece of this, I'm talking to a few big time creators and I'm trying to decide if it makes sense to work with them. So I'm talking to some.
It feels premature to me. So here's a couple of thoughts. One is, are you going to do any kind of are you going to do any, you said you're going to, from a marketing, are you going to do any kind of, what are they called? Kickstarter or anything like that?
No. So basically what I'm doing is the equivalent of Kickstarter. I just did it on my own website where I'm having pre-orders. I just don't get the benefit of Kickstarter's distribution, what I'm trying to build up through TikTok videos. And I don't give Kickstarter 8 to 10%. That's kind of the trade-off.
Yeah. I can see that. I mean, those can be valuable ways to gauge demand because they have built-in communities that respond to different products.
And by the way, games are supposed to be one of the best categories on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I mean, I would not take it off your list so forcefully. I would keep it in the views. And then on Facebook, one thing to think about that's an easy way to gauge demand is early on. There's like this thing I learned actually because I had been running huge campaigns and then I started running new stuff and I sucked at it, and it's called seasoning the pixel. And so what happens is like if you spend too much money too fast on Facebook, you actually their signal is not dialed in yet, and so you waste your money and you don't actually figure out demand. And so the playbook we ran in the second brand we launched that you should look at is create like 5 static ads and spend $50 a day. And what you're doing is you're actually letting Facebook, and you'll notice every week the like click-throughs get a little better, the conversion gets a little bit better. And dude, for this business, if during that phase you got the CAC below 50, it's a fucking massive idea. If you got the CAC even break even based on your gross profit, it's a very bona fide idea because you haven't layered on good and
you haven't optimized at all.
At all, right? You layer on email marketing, you layer on these videos that are going to become viral, and anything that's viral on organic becomes amazing as a paid ad, right? Yep. And so I would set that up as soon as you can, as soon as today or whatever, and get that up and running in 5 static creative that show what the game is explained in very basic terms.
I'm going to try to do it before next episode.
Yeah, 5 ads to the ad set. And then here's the math. Let's think about the math. This is a $150 product. The higher demand, there's AOV things to think about, right? So the higher the expense, the higher CPMs you're typically paying because there's less demand, there's less click-through conversion.
Yep.
But the math you have to think about is, let's call it a $20 CPM, and you serve 10,000 impressions. So that's $200 in marketing expense. How many sales do you get? Ampush calls it APM. It's a made-up metric of acquisitions per 10,000 impressions. It's really click-through and conversion mixed. But in your case, we would love to see a 3 APM, which means for 10,000 impressions, we sell 3 product. And then you could do the math of, I get a click-through of, with shitty static ads, you'll get a 1% click-through maybe, if you're lucky. Like that would be a good sign. And then we'd have to do the math on the conversion rate. But let's actually do it for everyone because, so you get 10,000 impressions, you get a 1% click-through rate. That means 100 people click. And so you need 3% conversion rate or, to get to
which sounds pretty high.
Sounds high. So maybe it's a 1.5 and a 2 or something, but you start to play with those. By the way, the math I just did would be a wonderful sign. So if in the first 2 weeks you're at 1 and 1 or 0.7 and 1, and that's okay. Like you want to see it over time and you don't have to invest that much, $50 to $100 a day for 2 months. And you got to see if it gets better over a period of time till you get close to that $50 CAC. Yeah. And then I want
to try this out. Honestly, the first thing that I have to accomplish, which I'm getting close to, is finishing the website. I haven't built a website in like 8 years, and I'm building on Shopify for the first time. And it actually, what it makes me want to do as I'm thinking about, and this will be another episode, the idea of a personal holding company and building many of your own businesses, is like, I want to take several courses or read several books in like copywriting and in design, because I just think being able to throw up really intriguing brands up front is such a powerful skill. So anyway, I need to finish the website, but then I do want to test that. Something I just want to leave you with.
By the way, I have a Shopify developer you should just hire and use. Like, it's cool for you to figure this out on your own to a point, and then at some point it just becomes silly.
It's just stupid.
Like, pay him a few $1,000s and just get your site.
Well, just for everyone to know, just to be totally transparent with costs, I've spent $12,000 on this game so far, and $11,500 was on R&D, and the remaining 500 was on like materials, like stuff I got for the game from Home Depot. And I finally found a TikTok editor that's going to make my videos. This is just like another lesson in how valuable distribution is, and also why businesses like Growth Assistant or service businesses that have talent in other countries, I think, is such a good business. The only reason I found this developer, his name is Vipul. He's, I think, like 18 or 19 in India. Amazing short form editor, is because he saw my post because I have 230,000 followers that I put it out to. No one would find Vipul if they didn't have that audience. And so I feel very grateful to have that distribution. Last thing
Can you intro me to him? I need
Yeah,
people.
100%. Last thing I'll leave you with is the biggest questions I'm asking myself right now to push the game forward is, how do we bring down costs enough to have enough margin, especially if I end up going into retail and have to sell wholesale prices to them? Is the price too high? Is $149.99 too high? It's on the higher end of games. How do we get to a place where I feel great about the board? There's still certain things in terms of the durability of the board I don't feel good about. And then if this works, what do I look for in an operator to run this day to day? And what do I want this brand to be / the portfolio of products to be? I have some ideas that I'll share in the future, but I'm still working that out.
I like my parting thoughts for you on this. I think one is, come up now with the December P&L or August P&L. It's going to be a summer oriented seasonality in this business. So like, dude, I want you to get to 1,000 sales in August at 150 per, let's say it'll be 125 with discounting. So 125K. We said 70 goes out the door. So whatever. And then aim for a $50 CAC. If you're going to use paid heavily, if not, then 25, but your top won't be as big. Yeah. And then build backwards from that. Like, I think it's really important to set that somewhere as a bogey and then build backwards from it.
Top of next episode, let's I want to hold myself to account. We'll set the goal at the top of the episode. And then, I don't know, every month we'll do a revisit on the business to see how it's doing.
Yeah. And on the operator thing, one thing I would just share with you, having now spun up 3 things, having someone from day one is much more critical than I think I realized. And so I would try to find that person now. I would start the search now.
Okay. That's good to know. Last thing, startup AMA, best way to finish the episode. We got a question from Emily. Emily brought up this article that came out in the last few days about Shopify. Shopify announced that they are going to do away with recurring meetings that involve 3 or more people starting this calendar year. Emily wants to know, do you believe that this was the right move? Jesse, what do you think?
100%. I mean, Twilio does this every quarter. Jeff told me that many, many years ago, and I tried to institute it. Anything standing gets deleted every quarter. I think one thing you don't realize in business is how fast inertia sets in and how most people are, we're all creatures of habit. Even you and I shared my weekly schedule. I consider myself this like amazing entrepreneur, like challenge the convention. And yet most of my weeks are very routinized, as you said. Yep. And so when you allow that to set in for your company, Rick Elias at Red Ventures, he would never set a standing meeting with me. He refused outright. Jesse, when you need me, call me. I'll get on the phone with you in the same day. If you don't need me, don't bug me. Leave me. And he does. The guy runs a tens of $1 billion company. If I text him and I go, do you have 10 minutes today? He will find that 10 minutes to talk to me. And so, yeah, I think it's great. I think 100%.
I agree. And if anyone wants to build the idea that I had posted on Twitter in December of 2022, I would love for someone to build a Chrome plugin or Zoom plugin where basically it keeps a tally of how much money is accruing in meeting cost as a function of the number of people in the meeting and their hourly rate. So when you call a meeting, basically the price you are paying for calling that meeting. I would love using that. I think it's such a good accountability holder.
There's this funny Chris Rock. Did you see the new Chris Rock?
No.
He's got this hilarious scene where he talks about he's like in divorce court with his wife, and he sits down for a second. He looks around at the proceedings, and he was just like, every single person in the courtroom I am paying for. I'm paying for the judge to be here. I'm paying for my attorney. I'm paying for my wife's attorney. I'm paying for her. I'm paying for the clerk. And he goes, and he pauses, and he goes, this is how I know I made it.
That is incredible. That is hilarious. Great way to end the episode. And Emily, thank you for the Startup AMA question. If you're a misfit and you have a question for Jesse or I, shoot us an email to thecrazyones@morningbrew.com. Again, we are super excited for 2023. We're going to be trying a bunch of different shit, but all with the same goal to help you build better businesses and to be the best startup show on planet Earth. Jesse, any parting words before we go?
No, I'm excited for 23. Let's go. It's going to be a great year.
Let's do it. Okay, have a good week, everyone. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of The Crazy Ones. If you're an entrepreneur or a builder and want more great startup content, make sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts.